What time is it? It's time for unpacking. Let's see, it's 8:08. You're still tuned in to Culture Daily, coming to you on 3 Music TV and Plus 89.9 FM. My name is Lerny Lomotey, and I'm going to be steering the conversation on unpacking this morning. Now, this morning, we're talking to a really beautiful lady. She is called Dellasie, and she refers to herself as a culture shape shifter, which I'm going to be asking about, because this is the first time I think I'm seeing somebody, refer to themselves as that. But let's have the conversation. Why not? Let's go. Hi, Dellasie. Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
All right. Now, let's start with, how you refer to yourself, a culture shape shifter. Yeah. Why that? And when did that start?
That's a really good question. No one's ever actually asked me to tap into that, so I'm really glad that you asked me that. I think my approach to what I do is really different in a lot of ways, and I'm hoping that I might inspire and influence, the generation coming behind me to kind of think outside of the box in essentially that way too. Like, for instance, with my humanitarian work, what I noticed, because I built relationships with the United Nations, World Health Organization, Food and Drug Association, and different organizations that were, philanthropy and humanitarian based. So I can understand kind of how to build my own initiative. And, during those interactions, I don't know, I feel like it seemed the people that were getting the most traction with these kinds of organizations already had so much celebrity. Like an Angelina Jolie and a Brad Pitt, like they got a lot of the perks and those resources. But when it came to artists that were maybe lesser known or mid-level or maybe more underground level, those kinds of opportunities aren't really there. So I kind of carved my own path in terms of that and used more creative ways to build those resources so that I could kind of forge that initiative and push forward. And I feel like that's different. And I'm hoping that more artists are inspired to do that, because you don't have to be like super famous and super rich in order to help other people. I have a platform, I have fans, I have privilege because I had education, I got to travel at a young age. I have all these things about me that makes me unique and privileged. And if you have privilege, this is just my own opinion. I don't feel like people should feel guilty if they don't feel this way. But if you have privilege, I feel like it's part of your responsibility to give back in a sense, because you have that privilege.
Right. Now, you mentioned, some creative ways, right? Which will these be?
Well, I mean, fundraising as an individual is difficult. And when I was in New York City is when I first started this initiative. That's already a very expensive place to live. So, bills were always my priority. So I didn't necessarily have all the resources to fly here and there and do this conference and that conference to kind of like, motivate more attention on that issue. So I would do fundraisers with my friends, or we would do like, bake sales, or I would go to thrift stores and find really beautiful, like high-end pieces that are just tucked away. Then I'd resell them. That's much more popular now, but when I was doing it, it wasn't as popular as a thing to do. So the profit margin was huge. I could make on one piece that's like some, I don't know, vintage, like, I don't know, Chanel piece or something. I can make a 500% profit margin off of what I invested, right? And you can't really, you can't just get a job and do that necessarily. I had a job, but I just didn't have enough, extra income to kind of push the things that I wanted to do.
Okay, now talking about the things that you wanted to do, you're doing a lot. You have your hands full, right? With music, philanthropy, and then also your fashion brand, right? So let's get into that. We've touched a bit on the philanthropy part, which we'll come to later on. But I would first want to know how you're able to juggle all of these things.
Because I'm single, girl. Okay? I ain't got no man. No, let me stop. That's part of the reason, though, honestly.
Okay. There are people who are still married who are able to properly juggle all of it. So, but it's perspective, so that's okay.
But still, you have to be intentional. Even in those relationships, the survival of those relationships depend on the time that you put into those relationships. You can't just say, I have a marriage, so I'm good. So I'm going to invest 90% into my career and like 10% into that relationship. You still have to find a way to balance. You know, it's
the balance
it's
is
an
important.
intentionality.
And why I'm asking,
So I don't,
really
I haven't made the time for that, which is why I'm saying that's part of the reason.
Okay.
Like I haven't made as much time to be intentional as my romantic life than my work. And that's why I'm able to do so much, because I dedicate a lot of time to that. Now that has to change, obviously, because
hopefully.
I want a family and all of those things. So I kind of have to now learn to be more intentional in that aspect.
And still maintain doing
find the
everything
balance.
else. Exactly.
Yeah, I don't think right now I'm as balanced as I should be, if I'm being completely honest with you. You know? But that's part of it. That's how I'm able to do so much, because I have so much time to dedicate to my career, and I'm so passionate about these things. You know, you're gonna find time for the things you're passionate about, that you really care about.
Same for the people you care about, right?
Yeah.
You always find time for those people. Now let's talk about your upbringing. You did mention earlier that you traveled when you were really young, right? There's one thing I say, that your childhood informs your adulthood, right? All the time. So let's run through how growing up for you was like, and at which point did you travel? Were there any culture shocks for you at that age, and how did you even wheel through all of that?
Good questions. I was born in New York City, in Harlem, New York City, and lived there the majority of my life, honestly. But my father worked for the United Nations, and part of his package was to go to your ancestral country. Like the UN really supports and promotes that. So even though he was working in the New York office, he traveled often, and we got to go with him once a year to Ghana. So we would come here. The first time I traveled here, I was like 8 months old or something. I don't know, I was really small. But I consistently came home to Ghana. So Ghana was always part of my upbringing, always part of my life, even though I was technically raised on the other side of the ocean from here. And it's very different culturally. Still, I had my own culture still very close to me, you know, in the home. My parents, of course, speak the language, cook the foods, and try to keep those traditions somehow. Me and my sisters don't have, you know, English names or Christian names. They call it English, Christian, whatever you call it, names, you know, Anglo names. We don't have any of those. My parents, when they moved abroad, they changed. They were Vivian and Maxwell, and they just changed their names legally to their Ghanaian names. Yeah, so they don't even have those names anymore.
For identity purposes as well.
Yes, they felt it very important to just hold on to their culture and always be very intentional. So with us, they did the same, and we came to Ghana often. So in my mind, I was like, I always wanted to move here. It was always part of my plan. Even when I was dating, when I was younger, I would always ask the boy if he'll move to Africa because I'm going to Ghana. You know, if we get married, we're gonna move there, or I'm leaving you. You know, that kind of thing. When I was young, but it was always part of the plan. So
it's fascinating how people who were born here, you know, who have grown up here, want to travel out, because now there's this whole quote unquote conundrum of Jackpa. Right, everybody wants to be out because of the whole, you know, economic times and all of that. I mean, is the world over, but people are feeling it more. And then also at the same time, we find that a lot more people are coming into the country to settle. They are finding opportunities where we are probably not finding, because they start certain businesses that hitherto you didn't even know existed, right? Now, prior to your move in 2018, what were some of the things that you identified? And then also, you know, the industries that you wanted to venture into. And since then, how has it been?
When you say what things did I identify in terms of
business?
Oh, okay. Well, I really honestly stumbled into business.
Okay.
It wasn't my intention. When I first moved here, I had a job offer for very good money to do a speaking tour with an organization. And it ended up, you know, not working out. So I didn't work with them. I was doing freelance marketing because I have a degree in marketing from Emory University. So I started doing freelance marketing for a very close friend, a family friend who I knew since I was very, very small. and he was a mogul, very successful guy, super, wealthy and just a workaholic. I mean, this guy was very intense and inspiring, and I was fortunate enough to be able to do a lot of his marketing for him. And unfortunately, he passed away in 2020, just suddenly. He had COVID.
God rest his soul.
Yeah, so...
Do you want to mention who that is? I'm sure people will be wondering.
Yeah, Atu Mode.
Oh, yeah, I figured.
Yeah.
I figured that's who you were referring to. God rest his soul.
Yes. So that was very shocking because it was a painful loss. But then it was also in the midst of the pandemic. So the economy was hit very hard. The job market was hit very hard. I was terrified. I'd been living in Ghana almost 2 years. So I didn't fully have the full transition. There's a transitional period. Yeah. And I was right in the middle of that period and still trying to adjust when all of these things are happening.
Still trying to find your feet, yeah.
So I experienced immediate income loss. So with the savings that I had, the money that I had to kind of be creative and think like, what can you do? Because the job market is in shambles. The global economy is in a shambles. And, you're in the middle of a culture that you've never lived in before, a job market that you've never worked in before. And it was scary. So I ended up getting into e-commerce because I noticed, in my grief, I wasn't going out. So I'm just home online all the time. And I'm seeing in all the comment sections, the common thing that people are complaining about is shipping.
Right.
I can't get my packages. Where are my packages? So I'm like, wow, nobody's working. Nobody's outside, but everybody's online shopping.
Ordering, yeah.
So I dove into e-commerce after that. I was like, wow, I need to understand, like, how does this work? Like, what is... the business side, what is that aspect? And I did like a 30-day boot camp on e-commerce, everything e-commerce, like 12 hours a day. I was so intense. And by the end of that, I started my store. Thank you. But by the end of that period, I started my online store, and
that's the fashion line.
Yeah, it's 2.5 years old now. Okay. It started as just a store, but now I'm developing my own brand and my own designs, and that's very exciting because I'm employing working class artisans and tailors. So it's people in the local community who I'm working with and partnering with. This is an opportunity for them to make things with their hands that will be worn around the world.
Right. For your love for fashion, did it just come after your e-commerce job? Or have you always been, a lover of fashion and style and the whole fashion industry?
I think I would have never done a store if I didn't have any kind of entry into fashion already. Because I think anything that you do as a business, you have to have some passion for it. You have to have some interest for it because it's very up and down. There's no kind of story in entrepreneurship where somebody is just from 0 to 100 real quick. Unless they're like a trust fund baby or they have a huge endowment to create something that's different. I start from the bottom and I'm here, kind of thing. Thank you. And we're still trying to work, we're still trying to get there. But I think it's a different perspective. So you have to have that passion because there's going to be times where you're frustrated, where you don't got no money, where there's things you can't do because of lack of resources, or you have to be creative. That passion pushes that creativity. It forces you to be tenacious and keep going. So yes, I have fashion all over.
There.
Yeah.
I am counting on when you actually come up with your own fashion line. What are you looking at? Are you looking at a niche where it's going to be just dresses or pants or tops? Are you looking at everything?
Yeah, it is very much everything. The kind of sections that we are creating are just tops, bottoms, two-piece sets, combination sets, and separates. And yeah, just essentially those for women. Maybe eventually in a year or two, I can expand into men and baby.
Okay.
But that's certainly something I want to do.
For women, you start with women for now. You mentioned creativity. In your creativity as well, you are an artist. You make music, right? You've done a refix to Stonebwoy's Into the Future, right? Yes, we'll talk about that really soon. But when did music start for you?
Oh, so early. I've been doing music my whole life, legit, like
It's typical, really
legitimate,
typical.
legitimately. I remember, I love this story, so I'll just tell you this quick story.
Okay, please do.
When I was 5 years old, I went to a party with my parents, and I saw a piano, so I started, playing around with it, like seeing like, oh, I press this and it makes this sound, and this sound. I started putting things together. So this woman goes up to my mother and says, how long has your daughter been playing piano? Because she's really good. And my mom's like, what do you mean? My daughter doesn't play piano. And she was like, come with me. So they go into the room that I'm in, that I'm, messing around. And they're just like quietly standing there. And my mother never said anything to me. I heard the story later.
Right.
That's how I knew she even heard it. But after that, they bought me a keyboard for Christmas. And once I had a keyboard and I could really, sit down for hours and understand this thing, they started getting me piano lessons. So by the time I was age 9 through 17, I had piano lessons, like classic piano, Mozart, Beethoven, like those classical, pianists. So I have a very strong classical music and like music theory. I could read notes, I can,
nice.
compose. Yeah, and so I have a very strong music background in that sense. But also I sang in the church choir. I was an alto. The school had a chorus. I did our school's chorus.
It's one thing we hear a lot all the time, starting young and being in the choir.
Yes, that's the best training you can get as a young person. And it really gave me a deep appreciation for music because I rap now. I mean, I always rap since I was very young too, but that's more so what I do. I'm not a composer. I don't do classical music, but having that background makes me very creative as an artist. It makes me approach art differently because I'm coming from a more eclectic, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like a one-note thing.
Yeah. I get you. So that explains why you made Into the Future the hip-hop version of Into the Future, right? How was that for you? And then why did you even select that song? Because there's a long list of songs you could have jammed on. Why Into the Future?
Yeah, I mean, Stonebwoy has so many amazing songs to choose from. I think I liked the energy of that song. And also, to be honest, I had a crush on a guy at that time. I mean, we were seeing each other, and I was like really into him. And that
so you wanted
song
to go into the future. Oh, I get it.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that song was so sentimental and so sweet, and I was already in a sweet and sentimental kind of mood, So I kind of wrote that with this guy in mind. And I guess that's kind of what inspired it. Music can be so random. Just randomly inspired, and you just go for it.
Has Stonebwoy reached out to you since the creation of that? I mean, it's out there. He's probably heard it and reached out.
Yeah, we performed it. Actually, 3 Music filmed it too.
Okay.
In Osu about a month ago.
You performed it with Stonebwoy?
Yes.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
It's an incredible story.
I honestly haven't seen that. But how did the meetup happen then?
We were both booked to do a panel, a music panel for Afrofuture, and it was at this venue in Osu. So we go, and I hadn't seen him in a few months, so we just like ran into each other randomly, and it was, I knew him from previous interactions, so it was just cool. And then we get on the panel, everybody says what they have to say, and he's like, nudging me like, yo, I agree with you, you're killing it. He's like, yo, say this, say that, because, he's like, you're saying all these things I wanted to say, you might as well finish and just add this. It was funny. And then he was supposed to do a jam session directly after the panel. So the host of the panel is, telling everyone, oh, get some drinks, mingle, we're going to have, Stonebwoy perform with the band. And he's like, no, everybody sit down, don't make a move. We're going to do it right here. So while all the panelists are sitting there, he just starts singing. Like, he just starts with it, like, just,
That's beautiful.
So then they're getting to Into the Future. And I could hear the guitars, like, with the, ding, 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 ding. I'm like, oh. So I nudged him again. I'm like, look, I wrote a verse to this. You know what I'm saying? He did not know. He knew nothing previous. He's like, you did? I was like, I did. He's like, I'm gonna pass you the mic. I was like, do that. So he did, and I did the verse, and it was a beautiful moment. Like the crowd was just so into it. They started cheering at the, and I'm surprised you didn't see that. Because
no, I'm yet to see that. Yet to see
Yeah.
that. But how would you describe Ghana's music space? And then how are you finding your feet in the space as well? Why'd you do that? Why do you look like that?
Okay, there's two answers.
Okay.
There's the politically correct answer, and then there's the honest answer. So it's what
Which
it's
would
what
you
think.
prefer?
I mean, I don't know. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings with being too honest. But I will say this: technically, Ghana does not truly have an industry, you know, because there's not. Like Ghana has a music scene more, but it's not like a true industry in its definition. Definition, only because there's so many aspects that are still missing to give it that structure, which is what would make it an industry. Like it really needs commerce, like in and out of this sector. It needs investment, local investment, foreign investment, but it has to be a consistency, and there has to be business and commerce built around the industry, you know, like in a significant way. And Ghana does not have that. I mean, artists still don't get royalties, like issues with, you know, residual, just basic, you know, music aspects and elements that are immediately part of what an industry is. Ghana still doesn't have.
Do you see the music scene, as you describe it, becoming a music industry anytime soon? And if you do, how soon?
It has to. Ghana doesn't have much of a choice because there's so much interest in African music. And there's a lot of like big, huge music labels that are interested in coming and exploiting that music. So if we don't create our own industry that's more significant and systematic and structured, we won't have the power to gatekeep in a way that protects artists and keeps money flowing into the sector and keeps the culture supported, because people appropriate a culture and then capitalize off of that culture. Those that created it don't get.
And it's happening, right?
It's happened many times in music, in particular, in hip hop, in dance hall. We've seen Black cultural music go through this cycle.
We've seen it with Afrobeats
so many
now,
times.
anyway.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We don't have a choice. We can't even wait. Like we have to do it now, because.
Well, fingers crossed. Hopefully things get better for you, and then you get to see our industry as an industry and not as, you know, a music scene, right? Are you working on any new music for the year? EP, album?
Yes, I just signed a distribution deal with Universal.
Oh,
yay!
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Awesome.
I'm really excited about that. Thank you. So I'm actually doing a series of songs that I intend to release throughout the year.
Okay.
I intend to just only release EP projects. They will have a theme though. They always have a theme. That's how my projects are. Okay. So they will be themed. But I don't think, I'm an independent, and I don't think as an independent artist, it's wise to do full-scale albums. Okay. But EPs are great.
What's your reason?
I think they're just very intensive, like mixing, mastering, all of those aspects are really, really expensive if you want it at that album quality. And then, you know, the videos and I mean, it's just a longer process, and it's much more expensive. And as an independent artist, you just have to be more, you could be just as effective, but not necessarily spending as much capital as a complete conglomerate like, you know, record label would be.
I get that. Know? So for your EP, how many songs are you looking at, if you've decided on that already?
For me, the EP scale would be between like 4 to 6 tracks per project.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So now let's hold off with the music conversation and head into philanthropy, which you also are into heavily. Now, when you said that your daddy worked with the UN, it's sort of like added up for me, right? But let's, you know, delve more into that. Why did you choose philanthropy, and then also which aspect are you into?
Yes. Okay. Great questions. Yes. You know, I attended the United Nations International School, UNIS, from 2nd grade through 12th grade. Okay. So growing up, also in New York City, they call it the melting pot of the world. Okay. Because it is. I mean, in a typical day, you can wake up and go to, you know, the store in the corner to get coffee, and you might see somebody from, I don't know, Saudi Arabia, and then you get on your bus and it might be a Korean man driving, you know, your bus, or get on the train, it might be a Jamaican man who's manning the train. Like, you come into contact with different cultures all throughout your day.
Right.
So New York is just very much like this already. But then going to Eunice, it was very, very much a cultural melting pot. My friends, my friend group growing up was, one girl was Tunisian, the other girl was Russian, another girl was Filipino. So we are all just like our own mini United Nations. So for me, colorism wasn't a huge aspect that I dealt with. I mean, obviously I know I'm dark skinned, I'm a black woman, I'm an African woman.
Relate.
But I didn't deal with a lot of the constant teasing and taunting and all of those things that go on as being a dark person growing up, you know, in America or most places in the world. I didn't deal with that as much because I grew up in an environment that was very mixed and culturally celebrating.
Right.
So we didn't, you know, deal with that as much. But when I got out of high school and I was in university and out in the world, that's when I noticed colorism was much more intense and much more of an aspect of people's lives than I had been dealing with. I knew about it, and I mean, I knew it was there. I had small experiences with it, but it wasn't as intense as what I saw as an adult.
Okay.
So I always kind of wanted to do something, and before Kofi Annan passed, he had a lunch with, you know, the family, and we're very close to him. So growing up, and he asked me, you know, what are you doing now? I hear you're touring. At the time, I was in Toronto and Europe doing a tour. He's like, I heard you're touring and doing music. He's like, let me know anything you need, because he knew everybody. He's like, I know everybody. You want to talk to anybody? I'll help you. And I was like, you know what? It's not even that. The way he touched the world with his humanitarianism, with his empathy, with the resources and how he used them with such empathy, it was inspiring. And I wanted to know how, me being a girl who has privilege, I have fans, I get to travel, I get to do things, how can I be more like you? How can I do more than just
tap into that?
Yes, more than just doing music, more than just rocking out and having fun or making people move and dance and smile. I love all of that, but how could I take that a step further? Like, how can I use my privilege? So he said, go home and think about what frustrates you and use that energy to work towards solutions.
So what was that for you?
Colorism. And that's how I stumbled upon my initiative on skin disease and skin cancer. Because when I looked up the medical implications of colorism, that's when we got to skin bleaching. And then the diseases that are related to skin bleaching, which is liver disease, kidney disease, cancer of the blood, and skin cancer, you know, melanoma, and all kinds of other skin diseases. So our skin is our largest organ, and it's our most vulnerable. And it's also something that's constantly in contention as a person of color.
So how long would you say you've been, you know, doing the philanthropy thing, and especially focusing on skin cancer and then skin diseases and skin-related issues?
2016 was when I started.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
That's a long time. Well, all the best with it. And then we hope that, you know, you're able to find proper balance with everything you're doing. And then also, if you wish, or as you wish, find your man and still balance it all.
Definitely I wish. It's just, you know.
And still balance it all.
I was trying to build a little empire, you know, that takes time.
Well, you can still do that and still have it if you want to, you know, that is. But it's been good. It's been good speaking to you, and all the best with everything that you're doing. So yeah, we are going to watch the video of you and Stonebwoy performing. I'm told it was at Cloud9.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to watch that video. But before we go into watching the video, how can people find you on socials?
Yes, it's just my name, Dellasie, everywhere. So Dellasie.com is my official website. They can go there. And on Instagram, there's an underscore, because this little Asian girl took Dellasie. I'm so upset.
Dellasie Foundation?
She won't even let me buy it. You know, I'm like, girl, I'll give you money. She won't answer. She has like 2 followers. I'm like, give me. Yeah. So you got to put a little underscore for Instagram. But
before or after?
After, at the end. At the end. Yes. But everywhere it's pretty much Dellasie.
So that's Delasie.
No.
The S is a $sign.
No.
What is it?
No.
Because I see the $sign on your website, right?
Yes. That's for You can't do that on social media. Like Instagram would not allow you to have a symbol in your name. You can only have like letters. So like for instance, for Instagram, it's not. Don't put that. That won't work. But it's Dellasie.
Okay. Dellasie _
Yes,
okay.
for Instagram.
All right. So if you want to find Dellasie, that is her handle across all socials. Let's go and check out her performance with Stonebwoy. This is the hip hop version of Stonebwoy's Into the Future.
Into the picture we show. Make sure her microphone is working for sure. Make sure. Bumba kata wam the Stonebwoy again. No,
like a good people that you was well put together. And then it's gonna be go better go together. So my baby, are you telling I'm a better for forever? I see the girl is running after you for profit. That's from a not girl, you need to stop it. I got to never equal a queen and you got me on the team. It's a rap now, I mean. Into the future, the parents come on the phone. Be the fix the move, as a reminder. A baby boy, I think you play to let it come. The people behind it, I cannot deny that. Submit myself to you, I know that you are worthy. Days the hunger for you will act. I'm never thirsty. I know you love me, you're smart. I've been encouraging you the best. You deserve me, baby. That's all I'm saying.
to the picture we show. You never listen to what them say. Into the picture.